shall I go? What shall I do?
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Behave yourselves!
Hello, YouTubers out there. This is Jerry Saravia at the movies. So today I want to talk a little bit about test screenings. Test screenings to me are like the Rotten Tomatoes barometer or tomato meter. They are not accurate. Rotten Tomatoes is a topic for another time, but I just don't see how test screenings help movies. Now, in some cases, they can. For some people, they will watch it with an audience. Some directors, they will watch it with an audience, and then they'll see, oh, I could trim this, I could trim that, whatever. But the notes that they usually get back for these test screenings are not always the most insightful. So, for example, Superman saves a squirrel. What? Oh my God! How could he save a squirrel? So apparently, at one of the test screenings that went poorly a few months back, because there was word that some test screenings did not go well for the new Superman movie starring David Corenswet and Rachel Brosnahan and directed by James Gunn. And one scene in particular, and I read this recently, said there was somebody in the audience who, because they give them out these cards and they stipulate what scenes didn't work or, they had issues with or whatever. I guess there's a series of questions and they answer them. So one of them was Superman saves a squirrel because in the movie, of course, there's a scene where this kaiju, this massive kaiju, monster to the rest of you, is attacking Metropolis and almost trying to tear down things and, stomp on people and all this other stuff. So Superman saves pushes he's holding on to the monster's foot, and with his cool breath, he sends a dog, sliding away so he doesn't get stomped on or fall, let the monster fall on anything, any human or any animal. And in one moment, he actually saves a squirrel. So, this is the level of insightful issues that people have. And a test screening, usually, at least at one time, I'm sure it's still the truth, or still the case, they do pull people from the street. And they say, do you want to come see this movie? It's, in rough shape, it's still like a rough cut or whatever, or it's been through a few different alternate versions, and we just want to see how people react and blah, blah, blah. I think in some test screenings, they don't even tell them what movie they're about to see. And so they sit down and watch it, and then they make their remarks. But it's a cross-section of all different kinds of people, which, technically that makes sense when it comes to a movie that's released in theaters. We don't know who's really going to see them, so it could be anybody, and that's the whole idea. They try to appeal to everyone. But not every cut of a film that's going out to theaters, particularly a big blockbuster picture, they worry a lot more when there's more money involved, the producers and the company involved in making the movie. So Superman is a big deal. It's DC, it's James Gunn, there's a lot going on here. And they want to get the most they can out of the box office. And so initially this scene was cut out. And James Gunn, the director, decided, I'm going to put it back in. And I'm grateful that he did. It's just that kind of a movie. It's Superman. Superman also saves a cat in the first Superman movie. Granted, it wasn't a kaiju in Metropolis, but there's a scene where this little girl says, Mister, can you take my cat down from the tree? And Superman goes and grabs the cat and gives it to her, and she's astonished that there's a guy who's flying around that saves this cat. But that's Superman. That's what he does. And he's not averse to saving any living thing, animal, be it animal or human. So it makes perfect sense that he would do that. Now, we've not had a moment like that in a Superman movie in God knows how long. And I was grateful to have the moment. Whether you like the movie or not is not the question, though. And that clearly doesn't play into the test screening. So, for example, in past test screenings that didn't go well, Goodfellas, which to me is still the best American film I've seen in the last 35 years, That film, when it went through some test screenings, in particular at Van Nuys in California, and half the audience walked out within the first few minutes because there's this vicious stabbing. You know, they find a body. It's a famous opening scene of Goodfellas, a body in a car, and Joe Pesci goes in and stabs it, and the audience checked out immediately. That was it. They were done. The movie really didn't even start. So, and then, now, test screenings, and then there's preview screenings or preview audiences that watch a picture, which I guess is not too far from test screenings, but the point of the test screening really is just to get an idea of how people react. There was a preview audience that went to see one of my favorite films by Robert Zemeckis. Now again, we're going way back. I Want to Hold Your Hand. It came out in 1978, 79. And there was a preview audience that was there, and they watched the picture. He was there to see how the audience reacted, the director Zemeckis, and the audience loved it. They were into it. They just couldn't get over it. They said, oh my God. And it was just a fun house romp. I mean, you could tell the audience was attuned to this movie. And then the movie was released in theaters and did no business whatsoever. Now, why is that? I don't know. Hard to say. Even to this day, I don't understand why I Want to Hold Your Hand did not do well at the box office. Maybe it came out the wrong time. I don't know enough about that. But they're not always accurate. You don't know what it is the audience truly wants to see. And when you're picking apart at certain test screenings what certain people say, it's almost like if that's going to guide the movie, unless it's something that really feels organic to the picture, right? In other words, a criticism or complaint that is organic to the story, to thematically, to a character, what they say, you know, whatever it is, rather than something like Superman saves a squirrel, as if, you know, because he's obviously this person didn't understand the Superman character. But like I said, we haven't had a scene like that in Superman since before Superman Returns, and that's almost 20 years ago. So, I can see the value to a certain extent, but in general, it doesn't help anybody, because it's like the MPAA. They're a cross-section of just a few people. We don't know who they are, and they tell us what the ratings are for movies. And in some cases, there's no fairness. In some cases, it makes no sense how something is rated one way versus another rating for something else that's much more severe or more violent or whatever the case may be. So these things are not accurate. And final point of trivia, director Robert Altman, with maybe a couple of exceptions in his career, when he was making pictures, a true iconoclast, he did not have test screenings for his movies. Too idiosyncratic for mainstream taste anyway. You know, certain directors like Jim Jarmusch, David Lynch, Paul Thomas Anderson, too idiosyncratic. So anyway, let me your thoughts. Tell me, what do you think? Do you think this is too an extreme reaction to even care about at a test screening? I mean, is this what we're getting? The barrage of complaints that Superman saves a squirrel. I remember somebody saying a while back, it wasn't a test screening, it was something else, where somebody was really offended by a movie. It was the Murder on the Orient Express remake. They were offended by mustaches. They didn't like seeing them. I can't watch this movie. There are mustaches. I mean, so if that's the level of complaints that they get, you know, and I could tell you about some other stories I've heard in the past, then, you know, it's not an accurate assessment of what it is they're watching. They're basing it on something that just makes no sense whatsoever. It's trivial. So let me know your thoughts. Tell me if you've ever been to a test screening. I certainly haven't. Or if you've been to preview pictures, films that are previewed at least a week before, if not earlier than that. I've been to a couple of those in the past. Let me your thoughts. Tell me what you think. And to the new subscribers out there, thank you. I appreciate it. I review movies on occasion and talk about film-related topics like this. And please hit like and subscribe if you aren't a subscriber. And I guess that's all I got to say about Superman saving a squirrel. What were they thinking? And this is Jerry Saravia at the Movies, signing off.